I think professors a lot of times tend to assume that everybody in the room is very similar and that everyone in the room is very privileged and that everybody, haven't experienced a lot of the struggles that low-income students have experienced. And, we're here. We're on this campus, we're in those classes. I think that professors have to kind of shift their way of thinking and their way of talking about low-income students and low-income experiences because we're not hypothetical. At this point, we're a part of the Dartmouth community. To be here while you also have a lot of responsibilities at home it's sort of like trying to sing something and then there's just this constant ringing in the background of like something that's not in the key that you're singing in, and it's super distracting and it's always there. And it's like, and you're still trying to just like power through and get done what needs to be done, but at the same time your attention is constantly being divided with other things.
I have had to make some decisions regarding sending money home versus using the money for specific classes.
Having a job and people not understanding why you need it or like why you're doing it, and having to explain that to people that you do need this job because if you don't have it, then your parents will have to pay for you, and if your parents pay for you, then they don't have food to eat or they don't have electricity.
As educators, I think that we're all interested in facilitating and creating the best learning experience we can for students. And so being sensitive to the fact that students are coming from different backgrounds, that they have different levels of preparedness, that shouldn't necessarily be an index of how hard they're working in the course.
Especially students who are first generation might not necessarily have the guidance that they need coming into college or the confidence. The workload just made me feel as though I didn't think I could last 4 years here. My job in the library, I have the opportunity to do more work there. It's a great job to be a student and also work in the library.
On Dartmouth's campus, a lot of the volunteer activities have very few low-income students. And part of the reason for that is because we can't afford really to dedicate our time to something that we're not going to be able to get paid for.
The important thing for faculty to know is if they want students to be able to do something, that there's money to find to pay students to be able to do that. There's a lot of places that students can apply for funding to work on research projects, to help you with research projects that you're working on, so you don't even have to fund them as an RA. Basically, you can get them to do RA work, for example, and they can be paid by the college to do that. Or that if they want to do an independent research project, then there's lots of different centers and institutes that they can apply for to do that through as well.
Textbooks have become ridiculously expensive in the past 10 years. As a professor, unless you directly look at it, you don't see it. Because the publishers actually try to hide this from you. They don't really want you to know that they're charging $400 for a textbook.
I didn't realize how powerful the problem of high textbook costs is for some students, and they're making educational decisions on that basis.
As of right now, I've kind of been avoiding math and science courses. I know that the textbooks cost a lot of money. Kind of like postpone that worry for like next year or September.
Every class that I try to sign up for or that I look at, I always look at the books that are required, how much those books are going to cost. And I ask people who have taken that class before whether or not they've used those books and how often they've used them, because if I don't need to buy it, then I won't.
It's really useful when professors make their readings available like online on Canvas, like make PDFs of textbooks or PDFs of journal articles.
The last 2 quarters, they've gotten ebook access for the textbooks, so students can actually just download the chapters, so they don't have to buy any books.
The other thing we've been moving towards are either open source, free, or very low cost textbooks, meaning less than $50. Particularly for introductory courses.
Putting books on reserve is kind of a hassle for faculty members. It always comes up at this point in the term where you're not quite done teaching in the previous term. You don't want to be thinking about the next class, and you need to do it early. And I used to just put it off and not do it. But the reality is, it's worth that extra step. That can be the difference between a student feeling like they can afford your class and take your class or not. And it does take a little bit of pre-planning, but there are resources on campus that make it easy. I don't have to scan my own chapters myself. There are other people who will do that. It's just you need to plan a little bit ahead, but I came to realize that that's absolutely worth doing.
Dartmouth as a whole feels uncomfortable, like it's made for like the wealthy, like white elites. There are pockets that understand that that's not true. I think I'm pretty vocal about my experience as like first-gen, low-income college student that's been in foster care. Students or faculty will talk about the experience of like an impoverished person as if they like can't really exist, and much less like can't really exist to the students like in the room. Hi. Networking is like the blood of higher education and like further opportunities. For low-income kids, it feels like you're using somebody, which is not something I've experienced with students from like higher income backgrounds because they feel very like natural about it.
I didn't understand the importance of office hours. They expressed the importance of it through FICEP and like showed us how to like go to office hours and what kinds of questions to ask, and information that would be important for professors to know about you, and like having that sort of connection with professors.
When I'm able to, I force them. I make it part of their grade. So in the first 2 weeks, I make 10-minute appointments, office hour appointments with every student. And they come and we talk for a few minutes, and they at least hopefully see me as someone who's more approachable. I know a little bit about them.
The best thing a professor can do to become more aware of low-income issues is to talk to people who work with low-income students on this campus. And I mean, maybe, just maybe, talk to low-income students.
My professor did like these tiny dinners or like dinner meetings with like 4 or 5 students, and then like he split them up throughout the term and got a chance to know more about the students.
You know, if there are any kind of student-run events that students have put together, I think it would be a really good idea to be able to go in and just interact with the student and just see what they have to offer and just see what they feel like they would like you to know about them. I think that would go a long way in being able to understand and learn a lot of the disparities and things that happen here at Dartmouth.
Faculty can help by offering the resources that they know about, listings of like alumni or internships or funding opportunities, and making those very apparent to students.
When I point out resources in class for students, if they, I say, hey, it looks like a lot of people are having trouble on this thing. Here's a list of things that you can go to. Here's a bunch of extra problems you might want to do to practice. I try to make sure that all of those things are free.
Just remembering to reach out to the first generation college student or to the low income college student, and just remembering, even if you don't know who they are, to acknowledge those challenges to your classes can help remind us as professors that these differences exist, and also can signal to students that we care about these issues.
My goal as an educator is that every student that comes through my door, I want to help them to the best of my ability get as far as they can possibly go. If I'm only teaching or only crafting my pedagogy and my interactions with students towards students that are wealthier from enriched backgrounds of all sorts of different types, well, I'm not going to help those other students. And then I'm not doing my job.
If faculty can like make any changes to make their classroom environment, their office hours, and their resources of their department more accessible to low-income students, it would do so much to help the comfort level and retention rates of low-income students who deserve to be here just as much as any other student.